During a joint press conference in the United Kingdom with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, Donald Trump was just confronted and humiliated to his face by a very clever reporter who asked a great question about free speech and the cancellation of Jimmy Kimmel. Check it out.
And on a separate issue, free speech, your Vice President Vance said that free speech is under attack in the UK. Do you agree with him? And Prime Minister, we saw the dismissal of a very well-known chat show host in America last night, Mr. Kimmel. Is free speech more under attack in Britain or America?
Well, Jimmy Kimmel was fired because he had bad ratings more than anything else, and he said a horrible thing about a great gentleman known as Charlie Kirk. And Jimmy Kimmel is not a talented person. He had very bad ratings, and they should have fired him a long time ago. So, you can call that free speech or not. He was fired for lack of talent.
That's not why he was fired. If that was the reason for his firing, then presumably he would have been fired 6 months ago or a year ago, 2 years ago. Did he suddenly just mysteriously lack talent? How did the lack of talent coincide with public threats by Trump's MAGA hack lunatic FCC chairman Brandon Carr, who hours before Kimmel was suspended, publicly threatened Disney and ABC and various networks and affiliates related to Jimmy Kimmel's show, threatening to revoke their FCC licensure? Occam's razor is pretty clear about this. Trump's FCC made a threat, and ABC complied with the threat. And of course, as I discussed in a previous video today, we have independent reporting corroborating that, courtesy of leaks from within ABC, people who were in the know, people who know the senior executives, who say that, no, they were just afraid of Trump. They didn't think that Kimmel actually deserved any sort of indefinite suspension. But that was a very clever question by the reporter saying, hey, these Americans often lecture us about free speech. Well, here they are kicking off comedians who satirize them in ways that they don't like. So that was embarrassing for Trump, absolutely embarrassing. And by the way, it put Keir Starmer in a really awkward position as well, because how could you possibly answer that question in any honest way that wouldn't look bad for Trump? So that was Trump's reaction. He's trying to deflect. It may not be free speech. It's just he had terrible ratings. Trump also said some other dishonest and stupid shit at this presser. Take a look.
And you see all the information that's come out. We won in 2020 big. And I said, let's run. We got to run, because I saw what was happening. And the worst thing that I saw was all of these people. We've already solved inflation. We've solved prices. Oil is way down.
So again, he's just lying his ass off. Inflation is on the rise. That is in part the reason why the Federal Reserve finally did a 0.25% interest rate cut, because inflation is on the rise, and they're trying to fend off stagflation. Inflation is on the rise, number one. Number two, they didn't win the 2020 election, and as people have pointed out on social media, and I'm going to try to pull up the quotes here a little later. Oh my gosh, if we're talking about Jimmy Kimmel getting canceled due to some sort of falsehood, well, there's Donald Trump spreading falsehoods on television. So maybe the FCC chairman should look into that. Here's another clip.
And I've got Matthew from The Economist. Matthew.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Mr. President, you say that President Putin has let you down. Have negotiations run out of road, and what are your next steps to compel an end to this war?
Well, he has let me down. I mean, he's killing many people, and he's losing more people than he's killing. I mean, frankly, the Russian soldiers are being killed at a higher rate than the Ukrainian soldiers. But, he said, let me down. I don't like to see. It's death. It doesn't affect the United States. We have, other than unless you end up in a world war over this thing, you could. This was a thing that would have never happened had I been president. If I were president, it would have never happened. And it didn't happen for 4 years. Most people agree it didn't happen, nor was it close to happening. And I spoke to President Putin about Ukraine. It was the apple of his eye. I've said that many times. It was. But he would have never done what he did, except that he didn't respect the leadership of the United States. They just went through the Afghanistan total disaster for no reason whatsoever. We're going to leave Afghanistan, but we're going to leave it with strength and dignity. And we're going to keep Bagram, the big air base, one of the biggest air bases in the world. We gave it to them for nothing. We're trying to get it back, by the way. Okay, that could be a little breaking news. We're trying to get it back.
So Bagram Air Base, as we've discussed, the withdrawal from Afghanistan, by the way, which Trump set up with the Doha agreements, cut out the Afghan government, and according to multiple post-withdrawal agency reviews, that was the single greatest reason that the collapse of Afghanistan occurred was because it demoralized the Afghan government, delegitimized the Afghan government by simply cutting them out of what happened in terms of the withdrawal. So Trump set that whole thing into motion. He retrograded. He reduced U.S. forces from 13,500 to 2,500 and then gave Biden a situation where, hey, you have 2,500 troops. On top of that, Trump also arranged for the release of 5,000 Taliban fighters. So he gave the Taliban back 5,000 people, left the United States and Afghanistan with 2,500 people, so half that number, and you had an insurgency force of 75 to 80,000 Taliban insurgents sweeping the country of Afghanistan, and he left Biden with all of that. So Biden could have reinvaded Afghanistan, which would have broken the Doha Agreement, which meant that the Taliban would have been attacking U.S. troops once again, or he could have tried to play the hand he was dealt by Trump. Bagram Air Base was miles away from Kabul, which was the major population center. So that would have meant if you wanted to do an evacuation, you would have had to transport logistically all these people out of Kabul to Bagram Air Base, which would have made them very vulnerable. And Bagram's ability to load planes was actually lesser than the Kabul airport. So the military made the decision like, yeah, we have some shitty decisions here, plus we don't have the numbers to actually secure Bagram, so we'll just do this out of Kabul. Now, maybe in hindsight, that was the wrong decision, but that was the hand that they were dealt by Donald Trump. So again, just want to point that out. Here, Trump is talking about the TikTok ban, which was passed by bipartisan majorities last year, signed into law by President Biden, reaffirmed unanimously by the United States Supreme Court, and Trump has been ignoring it for 8 months, unlawfully.
Doing, and we're speaking to President Xi on Friday to see if we can finalize something on TikTok, because there is tremendous value, and I hate to give away value, but I like TikTok. It helped get me elected. In fact, Charlie said, "Sir, you ought to get on TikTok. You'd be great." I said, "Really? Tell me about TikTok." And we, as you know, we did unbelievably well with youth, like at a level that no Republican has ever even dreamt of. And in what, look, I think we won it for a lot of reasons, but that was a reason we won the election by such a big number. TikTok has tremendous value. The United States has that value in its hand because we're the ones that have to approve it. I specifically get the right to approve it. The people that are investing it are among the greatest investors in the world.
They're also right-wing Trump-supporting investors. That's what he did. He withheld this deliberately so as to try to get TikTok out in the hands of people who are politically aligned with him. It's disgusting and despicable. And again, even the National Review and the Wall Street Journal and Fox News, they have called out Trump's TikTok delays as major violations of the law. It is patently unconstitutional. Bipartisan majorities signed into law by President Biden, upheld by the United States Supreme Court. He is just violating the Supreme Court and Congress and everybody else. Major violation of the law. Got another clip I want to show you here, which is Donald Trump. You may not catch this, but Donald Trump totally fucking up a country's name, just confusing one country for the other about a peace deal he claims to have negotiated, but really had little role in.
That one's not settled. To think that we settled Azerbaijan and Albania, as an example, it was going on for years. It was never going to be settled. If you remember, the prime minister and the presidents, they were there for many years. They said, when they were in my office, we settled.
So it's Azerbaijan, not Azerbaijan, right? So he fucked up the name there. And it's Armenia, not Albania. So as Tommy Vitor, Pod Save America, point out, Azerbaijan and Armenia signed a peace deal because Azerbaijan routed them and decisively won the war. So Donald Trump had very little to do with it, okay? And so the other things I want to point out, Gavin Newsom's press office mocking the FCC and Trump by saying Dozy Don, who looks awful recently, the hands is lying on live television. His so-called FCC chair, Brendan Carr, must immediately apply the made-up Jimmy Kimmel rule and kick Trump off TV. Let's go, Brandon. That's clever. I didn't see that part. Let's go, Brandon, of course, is the mimetic slogan that's supposed to stand for fuck Joe Biden. Let's go, Brandon. It's supposed to be the more like TV palatable version of that. And here he is rerouting that. That's really clever. I like that. And if you just look at the quotes, like again, speaking of somebody who should be fired for lack of talent, Trump lying again, Kimmel never said a horrible thing about Kirk, free speech or not, more Trump lies. He's just getting savage by it in the quote tweets on social media. being suspended indefinitely, people mocking Trump for not knowing the difference. Thing is, if you're going to do all this stuff, why are you hiding your hands? Clearly you have to. Trump wanted Kimmel and Colbert fired for years and got his way. He's marked 2 more late night hosts for elimination. Wow. Yeah. So it's good stuff seeing this called out, but there you have it. Donald Trump being confronted and humiliated with a really clever reporter asking a very clever question and trying to pit Starmer and Trump against each other. Unfortunately, it didn't work in the sense that Trump, Starmer's not going to publicly challenge Trump in that way, but the discrepancy and the hypocrisy reveal themselves, and you can see even Trump recognizing it and trying to spin the decision. Of course, he failed abjectly. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.